From Crashgate and Spygate to the unknowns like McLaren running underweight cars in a race, here are some of the most shocking cheating in F1. Let me start with Bar and their secret fuel tank. The year is 2005, and Bar, who's currently Honda, has come off after its best season. They came second in 2004 and were a really exciting team for the upcoming season. Their lineup included Jenson Button as the lead and Takuma Sato as the other driver, though they didn't really live up to the hype. Bar started its season quite poorly. They started accumulating points from the San Marino Grand Prix, with Jenson Button securing third place and Sato finishing fifth. Bar saw a ray of hope that ended soon enough, when Button was disqualified because his car was found to be underweight. Now that's interesting.
At Silverstone, a fortnight later, a man making his 150th start from pole position is going to take victory, and for the first time in Formula One.
The stewards also found a secondary fuel compartment, but that issue was settled after Bar explained the reasoning behind it. The results stood initially until the FIA contested and an investigation began. The Court of Appeal ended up stating that the car could not meet the minimum weight requirement of 600 kilograms if it wasn't for the secret fuel tank. I won't be surprised if you're confused, because so were the authorities back then. They decided to investigate Bar's fuel consumption data, but couldn't seek clarity on the rules. So they decided to hand them a 2-race ban. Bar ended up missing the Spanish and Monaco Grand Prix, and the good run that was supposed to start never really did. Were they doing it even before this race? Who knows? But it was so unusual that even the rule book struggled to give clarity. The was due to an observation by the stewards. The next one has audio evidence involved. It's the Ferrari team orders going wrong. Scuderia Ferrari had Fernando Alonso and Felipe Massa in their lineup for the 2010 season. The took place at the German Grand Prix. What happened was that Massa was in the lead at the end of the race when received a message from the technical team.
Right, so the reins have been released on Charles Leclerc.
Vettel's miles away, isn't he?
And he has pushed. He's pushed to the extent that now Charles Leclerc...
The message said, Felipe, Fernando is faster than you. Do you understand? While this may seem normal to many of you right now, team orders were banned in the F1 back then. And while this message was being given, the live coverage was focused on the Brazilian. It wasn't just Massa who heard the message, it was everyone watching the race. The message was asking Massa to let Fernando through, and that's exactly what happened shortly. He took the lead, passing through Felipe. You know what's funny? Team orders were initially banned in F1 because of Ferrari, when they ordered the other driver to let Schumacher through in 2002. I suppose life comes in full circle, doesn't it?
Let Sebastian by, let Sebastian by.
But I'm pulling now, I'm pulling away. I'll let him by.
Copy. We let you by.
The outrage amongst the fans was horrible. They all accused Ferrari of manipulating the results, and rightfully so. Ferrari could have tried hiding the message through a code or something, which, by the way, many other teams used to do. Instead, they decided to risk it all and ended up getting a fine of $100,000. Adding to the drama, the FIA decided to dissolve the ban on team orders soon after the Ferrari incident. It's like they were waiting to put it all on them before changing the rules.
We need to push now. We need to go faster, otherwise we'll let Sebastian pass. We need to go faster.
Yeah, but we're both... Okay.
There's more to Ferrari and cheating. I'm sure y'all heard of Michael Schumacher. He's widely regarded as the greatest F1 driver of all time. While he's had his glory days in abundance, there were quite some controversial scandals that became part of his career. One such incident took place in the 2006 Monaco Grand Prix. The season saw Schumacher and Alonso, who was then driving for McLaren, battle each other for the title. Schumacher set a time good enough to get pole for the race, and then went on to park his car at the Rascasse, which seemed genuine to many at first.
Blitzing the opposition to take one of the most commanding pole positions of his career and silence his doubters. It was a truly remarkable comeback.
Was actually a well-thought-out plan. The intervention resulted in the yellow flags being out and all other drivers had to abandon their laps. Of course, Alonso was one of them, and he was having a brilliant final lap. The incident was investigated by the FIA and the stewards, found Schumacher guilty of parking the car deliberately. They charged him for interfering with the results of qualifying, and he had to start the race from the very end. He showed his class by still finishing fifth in the race. But the point remains that Schumacher has never been one to play fairly. He'd do anything to win, and I mean anything. He crashed into his rival in the final race of 1997. Jacques Villeneuve was fighting Schumacher for the title in 1997, and the championship decider went to the last race of the season. Villeneuve was leading the championship, and of course, Schumacher wasn't particularly happy about it. The German deliberately collided with the side of the Williams as the driver was trying to overtake the Ferrari. I mean, how convenient is it to mess one's race up? What was Schumacher thinking? The crash resulted in both drivers having to retire. Imagine thinking about crossing the checkered line to win the title seconds before crashing and retiring. Oh, I can't even imagine how bad that must have felt. Schumacher did what he felt right, and the FIA removed him from the championship standings. He lost the race and the title too, unfortunately. The next involves blatant cheating, and Ferrari too. Why is it always Ferrari? Anyways, Spygate is one of the most famous F1's. In 2007, Nigel Stepney, chief mechanic of Ferrari, was suspended for giving documents worth 800 pages of secrets to a McLaren employee. Mike, the chief designer for McLaren, was accused of having the documents with him and using the data to get an advantage over Ferrari while constructing their cars. Isn't that crazy? Why would you do that for a rival? I suppose the money must have been good. Anyways, the FIA had to step in as always. Their investigation confirmed the possession of the documents, but they initially couldn't find concrete evidence suggesting that McLaren used the data to enhance their design. Either way, McLaren was found guilty and they were disqualified from the Constructors' Championship that year. And to add to that, they were charged with a fine of $100 million, which, by the way, is the largest fine in the history of F1. Poor Mike would have regretted taking those documents. That's what's called blatant cheating. And just when you think you'd heard enough, there comes Crashgate to top it up a notch. Just after the season of Spygate, F1 fans got to witness yet another memorable event in the history of the sport. Renault enjoyed good performances with Alonso until the Singapore Grand Prix, where he was unable to challenge for pole due to some fuel problems. Instead, he ended up starting 15th. The race took a turn when Nelson Piquet Jr., who was Alonso's teammate, crashed at turn 17 to bring out a safety car. Alonso shoveled things up and ended up at the very front due to this incident. That seemed too easy, didn't it? Well, Alonso got the lead and dedicated his victory to the timing of the safety car. But in reality, all of it was a carefully orchestrated move. Piquet went to the FIA with his testimony shortly after being dropped in the 2019 season. He said that Flavio and Pat Siemens asked him to crash, which would bring out a safety car, and that would have allowed Alonso to capitalize. Siemens confessed and got a 5-year ban, while Flavio was given a lifetime ban from F1. And that's what happened in arguably the biggest cheating in F1 history. That's all from my side.
Than anyone else, blitzing the opposition to take one of the most commanding pole positions of his career and silence his doubters. It was a truly remarkable comeback.